In the heart of West Africa, where the golden sun kissed the red earth each morning, there lay a quiet village named Ojomba. The wind always danced through the tall grass there, whispering secrets only the wise could hear. The villagers often said that the wind in Ojomba carried messages from the ancestors. When it blew softly, it meant blessings. When it roared, it was anger. Yet no one ever truly understood its voice, until the day a child was found lying in the dust, wrapped in palm leaves, crying as the wind howled. The woman who found him was Mama Nyora, a poor widow whose tears had watered the soil more times than the rain had. For many years she prayed for a child, her cries echoing through the night. But that morning, as she lifted the baby, the wind suddenly calmed, as though it sighed in relief. She named him Olu, meaning, the one whom the gods have heard. The villagers came to see the child whose birth the wind had announced. They called it a blessing, a miracle, and a warning all at once. As Olu grew, he became unlike any other child. He would sit outside his mother's hut for hours, listening to the air move between the trees, smiling as if someone was telling him stories. When Mama Nyora asked what he heard, he would say softly, "The wind is speaking to me, Mama." The villagers laughed at first. But laughter turned to awe when one day, dark clouds gathered above Ojomba. The people feared a storm. Yet Olu, barely 6 years old, raised his small hands and whispered something no one could hear. Suddenly, the clouds broke apart, and sunlight streamed down. From that day, they called him, the Child of the Wind. Fishermen came to him before setting sail, asking which way the breeze would turn. Farmers came seeking when the rains would come. And Olu always answered with calm certainty, his eyes reflecting both wisdom and sadness. But where light shines, shadows always follow. The chief's son, Te, a proud and arrogant young man, began to envy Olu. "Why should a widow's son be praised more than me?" he spat one evening. "He must have stolen his power from dark spirits." Te spread his poison slowly. He told the villagers that Olu's power came from forbidden spirits of the forest. Fear took root where faith once lived. Soon, when the wind howled at night, people whispered, "It is the boy calling the spirits again." Mama Nyara begged her son to stay quiet, to hide his gift. But Olu shook his head gently. "Mama, the wind does not hide. It moves freely where it wishes." His words, though simple, carried the strength of ancient wisdom. Then came the season of no rain. For months, the skies refused to open. The crops withered, and the riverbeds cracked. The people prayed and sacrificed goats to the gods, but nothing changed. In their despair, they turned once again to the child who spoke to the wind. Olu stood in the center of the village, barefoot, eyes closed. The air was still, so still that even the birds held their breath. He whispered to the wind, his voice trembling. Moments later, a cool breeze passed through, and the villagers gasped as dark clouds gathered. Rain fell, soft at first, then heavy. The people cheered. But not everyone rejoiced. Te watched from afar, anger burning in his chest. "They will worship him," he muttered, "unless I end this." That night, he went to the chief, his father, and spoke lies. "The boy brings rain only because he commands evil spirits. If we allow him to stay, the gods will curse us." The chief hesitated, but fear clouded his judgment. The next morning, he ordered that Olu and his mother leave Ojomba before sunset. The villagers wept, but no one dared to speak against the chief. As they walked away, the wind rose behind them, swirling through the huts, knocking over pots and shaking doors. The villagers whispered, "The wind is angry." But Olu turned to his mother and said softly, "No, Mama. It cries for us." For days, they wandered through forest and plains, their feet blistered, their stomachs empty. Yet whenever Mama Nyara felt she could walk no more, the wind would cool her face and whisper, "Keep walking." One night, as they rested near a lonely baobab tree, Olu dreamed. In his dream, the wind spoke in the voice of a woman, ancient and tender. Olu, it said, beyond the desert lies the mountain that knows all names. There, you will find your destiny. When he awoke, he told his mother everything. Though frightened, Mama Nyara trusted her son's gift. They began their journey across the wide desert, guided by the wind that whispered through the dunes. The desert was a vast ocean of gold and silence. The sound shifted like waves, whispering secrets of forgotten travelers. Each day, the sun burned like fire above them, and each night, the cold beat their skin. But the wind stayed with them, gentle and faithful, guiding their steps. Sometimes, the wind would carry voices, laughter, cries, or songs. Mama Nyara grew fearful, clutching her son's arm. "Do you hear them, Olu?" she whispered. The boy nodded. "They are the spirits of those who once walked this way. They mean no harm." One evening, as the red sun sank below the dunes, they found a dying traveler lying half buried in the sand. Olu knelt beside him and asked softly, "Who did this to you?" The man gasped, "The wind, it spoke, and I did not listen." Then he closed his eyes forever. Mama Nyara shivered. But Olu looked at the horizon where the wind was rising again. "The wind warns and guides," he murmured. "Those who do not listen lose their way." After many days, the sands turned to rocky plains. The wind grew stronger, carrying scent of rain and leaves. They had crossed the desert. Ahead lay a great mountain, its peak hidden by clouds. The air around it pulsed with power, as if the earth itself was breathing. At the mountain's base stood an ancient shrine made of stones older than memory. Strange carvings lined its walls, symbols of wind, stars, and rivers. Olu felt drawn toward it, as though invisible hands were calling him home. Inside the shrine, the air was cool and heavy. The wind hummed softly like a distant song. Then, suddenly, it spoke in the voice of the same woman from his dream. "Olu, you have come. I am Nkari, spirit of the wind." Olu fell to his knees. "Why do you speak to me?" he asked. The spirit's voice was kind and powerful. "Because your heart listens. You are the bridge between man and wind, between pride and humility." Nkari continued, "Your people are dying, Olu. A great drought has struck Ojamba. The same people who cast you out now pray for the wind's mercy. Only you can bring it, but first, you must forgive them." Tears welled in Olu's eyes. "They hurt my mother. They cursed my name. Why must I forgive them?" The spirit's voice softened. "Because the wind carries both life and death. It cannot serve those who hate. It listens only to hearts that forgive." Olu closed his eyes and placed his hand on his chest. The wind inside the shrine began to swirl faster, lifting his hair and clothes. When he opened his mouth again, his voice merged with the breeze itself. "Then teach me how to forgive." For days, Olu remained in the shrine. The wind sang to him songs of rivers, forests, and skies. He learned to listen, not with his ears, but with his heart. He saw visions of his people crying under the sun, of his mother praying for them despite their cruelty. When he finally stepped out, the mountain greeted him with a roar of thunder. The wind circled around him, no longer wild, but loyal, like a faithful companion. Mama Nyara waited outside, her eyes filled with wonder. "My son," she whispered, "you have changed." Olu smiled softly. "No, Mama. I have become what I was meant to be." The wind carried his words across the plains, toward the land that once cast him out. It was time to return home. Back in Ojamba, the drought had turned to disaster. The river had vanished. The trees were grey. Children cried for water, and the elders knelt in the dust, praying for rain. Even Te's arrogance had faded. He now wandered the empty fields, guilt burning in his chest. When Olu arrived at the village gate, no one recognized him at first. His presence was calm yet powerful, His eyes carried the sky within them. But Mama Nyora's trembling voice broke the silence. It is him. My son has returned. The villagers fell to their knees. The chief came forward, shame on his face. Olu, forgive us. We were blind. The boy looked at them all, the same people who had once thrown stones at him. Then he said softly, I have already forgiven you. He stepped into the center of the village and lifted his hands. The sky darkened. A cool wind swept across the plains, carrying with it the scent of rain. The people held their breath. Then thunder echoed, and rain poured down in torrents. The drought was over. The land drank, the trees sang, and the people wept. Te fell to his knees before Olu. I am the one who lied, he confessed. I poisoned their hearts against you. Olu touched his shoulder gently. The wind forgives, and so do I. But as he said this, a great gust rose suddenly, swirling around him, lifting dust and leaves. Mama Nyora cried out, Olu. The wind spoke once more, the voice of Nkari echoing through the rain, every gift has a price. The one who commands the wind must become the wind. Olu turned to his mother, tears blending with rain. Do not cry, Mama. I will always be here, in the breeze that cools your face, in the rain that feeds your crops. Then the wind lifted him higher and higher until he vanished into the storm. Only his voice remained. The wind carries love where words cannot reach. The storm ended, and the world was quiet again. Mama Nyora stood alone in the rain, smiling through her tears. When the breeze brushed her cheek, she whispered, My son. Years passed. Ojomba flourished once more. The villagers built a shrine at the edge of the forest, the shrine of the wind child, where travelers came to whisper their troubles. They said that sometimes, when you listened closely, the wind would answer. And so the story was told from generation to generation, of a boy who spoke to the wind, who taught his people forgiveness and the strength of a humble heart. Whenever the wind blows across Ojomba, the people still say, the boy is speaking again.